I feel like I don't deserve to get to introduce Mr. David Morgan, but we had a kind of like a lottery pick, a raffle, if you will, and I won the raffle. David Morgan is a good friend to both DeJuan and Tiffany, and I guess anybody who knows David feels like David is my good friend. So a lot of people know David, love David. David flew in from Dallas just to be with us tonight. So we're really excited to have him. I know that a lot of you have asked a lot of questions. You've asked a lot of really good questions. I don't know the answer to most of those questions, which is why we brought in David Morgan. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn over to you, my friend.
Okay.
Folks, give it up for Mr. David Morgan.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. That's so good. It's good to have friends. Glad we're not enemies and be horrible. My name is David Morgan, and I am from Dallas. And I have to always tell this story when I do this. I have a friend who is really smart. Like, I went to some community college in Dallas because I'm an overachiever, and he went to Yale. And so we said we're exactly alike, except you're rich and good looking and smart and went to Yale, and I'm the exact opposite of all those things. But he tells a story about when he would go into Yale his senior year, and he had this professor who was awesome. And he said this professor would walk in every day just ripping this huge cigarette, it's just burning in class, old school, just go, why are we here? He would go on to tell you why. So that's what I'm saying. Like, why are we here tonight? Right? Why are we here? I wish I had this. I should have brought a cigarette. That'd been cool. Well, the first reason why we're here is because Young Life has had a huge impact in my life. When I was a sophomore in high school, a girl named Lisa Anderson in my sophomore English class turned to me and she said, hey, do you want to go with me to Young Life tonight? And I couldn't believe she knew my name. And I was just like, yeah. And she said, well, I'll be able to pick you up at 7:20, which obviously one sign I was a loser, I couldn't drive yet. And she could, and she came and she had her boyfriend in the car. And so I'm just like pissed all the way to, don't you want to know what the sign for pissed is right now? Right, that one right there. So, and so we get there, and I immediately saw two things hit me. One is, oh my gosh, everybody's here. If you've been to a Young Life club where you feel like everybody was there, that's super fun, right? And then I saw Young Life leaders up front, and I just thought, I don't know what those guys have, but I want that. That looks awesome. And I listened to the guy who's now one of my best friends give the talk, and I met the Lord that night at a Young Life club. It can happen at club. It's kind of crazy. And so that began this journey with this mission and my walk with Jesus. For 16 years before I did this job that I do right now, I was a Spanish teacher and a basketball coach. And so every day, my day consisted of coaching a basketball team with all African American guys and teaching Spanish for native speakers to folks from all over the world who spoke Spanish as their native language. And so that was my world. And that's the world that I love, and it gives me life, and it's where I think I'm gifted. And so then when I came on Young Life staff, I remember I inherited this Young Life club, and our first club killed it. We had 2 people at club, 2 white girls, yes. And so I started going to the lunchroom, and I brought leaders. We had more leaders than kids, and I brought leaders with me. And I walk in the lunchroom, and the first day I looked at the lunchroom that had 30% of the club, of the lunchroom rather, was Anglo kids, 30% was African American kids, 30% was Latino kids. And I just looked at my leaders and I said, I'm not going to hang out, not that I will say no, I'm not going to hang out with any of the white kids. You guys can do that. I'm going to those 2 lunch tables because I want our club to look like our high school does. And that was what my heart was, because I want Young Life to be on for every kid. And so the main reason that I'm here is because I have a passion for every single kid in the communities that the Lord has us to minister to have the same option to hear about Jesus like I did, to know the same Young Life that I knew. And I'm not okay with that not being the case. And so now, Dave, can we make this guy work real quick? I want to show you where this led us in Texas. So I'm an area director at this club, and then my job changes a little bit because I'm a Spanish speaker. And I don't know if you know about Texas. I think there'll be some application here too. But here's Texas population numbers, okay? So we realized we had a problem in Texas. In Dallas, there's 7.1 million people, 5.5 million in Greater Houston, 6 million kind of in the south part of Texas. And that's just people. And then school-age kids, that's K through 12, there's 5.3 million in Texas, and 2.7 million of those kids are Latino kids. So if our clubs don't look like that, there's also about 800,000 African American school-age kids in Texas. If our clubs don't look like that, I got a problem. So I was on an interview team with my boss, and the people we would interview to go on Young Life staff, the line out the door was nothing but people that look like me. And I know our kids look like this. And my boss and I were like, we're not okay with this. Something has to change. And for 2 years we thought, what can we do to change it? So finally, we did something, hit the next slide. We did something called, we joined a national movement called the Latino Student Staff Program, LSS, okay? And this was our first class from Dallas and Houston. And so let me just tell you, I'm going to talk about the program theory that is developed into what we're here to talk about, which is the DFL. And DFL stands for Developing Future Leaders. This was called Latino Student Staff. We took the word student out of it because you don't have to be in college to be a part of LSS. We have everything right now from age 20 all the way to age 37 involved in the program, okay? And it is a 2-year leadership development program that is a pipeline to full-time Young Life staff. We'll talk about that in just a second. So let me tell you what these people have turned out to be. This is our first class of folks. This guy's on full-time staff. This guy's on a committee. He's a chiropractor. Full-time staff, area director, full-time staff. These 2 gals were on full-time staff. They now are involved in different ministries. They're both Young Life gals. One of them was an area director. Both of them were actually for a little while. Full-time staff and an area director. So the Lord was with our very first class, and He gave us a great class of folks. Another cool thing about this is high school ministry, wildlife, high school ministry, wildlife, young lives, and high school ministry. And so it was a very diverse as far as what ministries people were involved in, folks that we graduated out of the class. And so here's a few things, and then I'm going to tell you details about the program as we go. Go ahead and hit the next slide for me, babe. So here's a few details of what's going on over the years. We have 33 graduates as of last year. I'll show you in a second who's graduating this year from our program. Here's what we have. You can read. Almost everyone, huge percentage, about 84-85% of the folks who are come out of our program remain involved in the mission. Every single region in our division, so I work and live in Dallas, but I work in the South Central Division, which is Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, and Louisiana. In the Young Life world, you guys sit in the Southeastern Division, which is Tennessee, the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, and Mississippi. So kind of the other part. We're together, but separate, right down that line right there. And so the South Central Division has DFL interns in every single region in our division, and they represent every single ministry in our mission. We have people doing Young Lives, we have people doing Wildlife, High School, Capernaum, and Wild College. Everything's represented. We're on track to have every single region in y'all's division have some representative, some folks in the program as well, which is super exciting. So, this last one, before I go on, about 3 years ago, this was exclusively Latino when we started, because that's our population. Makes sense, right? And my boss said, the Lord is obviously with this. What can you do to expand it? And I said, we need to do the same, offer the same thing to African American folks. And so one of the things that the program has allowed is it's allowed us to change the way the table looks. People who are sitting at our Young Life staff table. Come on over. How are you? Hey guys, good to see you. I'm glad you're here. Don't let anybody say anything bad about you, especially to So it's changed what our staff looks like. And now I want to show you the next slide is really awesome. But before I show it to you, I got to tell you something. I got to give you a little biblical background. Okay. Genesis 11. Who knows? Anybody know what Genesis 11 talks about? Right at the very end of it. Come on, somebody. Got a Young Life staff people here. You should know the Bible. Let's go. No pressure. Very end of Genesis 11. It's a big deal. Everybody's gathered.
Tower of Babel.
Tower of Babel. Okay, what's the story of the Tower of Babel, real quick?
Well,
Come on, real quick.
essentially the tower falls and then all these languages.
But before that, why'd they build the tower?
To be more powerful and everybody can see from everywhere.
They said, we're going to make our name great. And then like Blake said, God said, no, you're not. he destroys the tower, confuses their language, right? And then Genesis 12 happens. Genesis 12 is a really big deal. What's Genesis 12? What? Abrahamic covenant. Where God, right after the people say, we're going to make our name great, right? God says, no, you're not. Then God looks at this one guy, Abram, and he goes, I'm going to make your name great. So when I show you the next slide, I say that to say, I don't ever want to take any credit for what the Lord has done in this, ever, because I don't want to be like, I'm making my name great. But I do want to show you the next slide, because it's pretty awesome. As a result of all of this thing started, and the Lord's hand in it, this is what's happened just to Latino ministry, just in our division, over the last, now, 8 years. And if you're good at math, which I'm okay at, that's about a 900% increase if you average it all together. The Lord has been in this. And there's no empirical, like statistical data, because I've asked a lot of really smart people. I've asked them, I've said, is there any evidence, like statistical, numerical evidence, that says that an African American person is better suited to go into an African American community and do ministry with that community? And I can't find it. Like, I've asked a lot of people, is there any of us that a Latino would be better qualified? It doesn't mean that Anglo folks aren't able to go minister in communities any more than it would mean that an African American could come minister in an Anglo community. Of course you could. But there's something there, and I think you guys would all agree with this, when you see someone that looks like you, comes from your same background, they have all the same just qualities and characteristics that you're familiar with. It's like a family member, right? Honestly. And you go, it's just different. Because it's just helpful. It breaks down barriers that I might have to work harder at to be able to break down. Even though I, for example, am a Spanish speaker, which breaks down a huge barrier in the Latino community, I'm still not Latino. I've still never had to deal with the stuff that a person who has brown skin, even living in Texas, has to deal with and has had to deal with because of the color of their skin. I haven't. And I recognize that. My favorite number up here is the bottom one. In 2011, we had no Latino volunteers, and now we have almost 700 Latino volunteers. So regardless if there's no, this is by empirical data right here, right? This is statistical data that shows this thing works. We don't have any numbers for African American ministry. We've been doing it for 3 years. I can't imagine the Lord's not doing the same kind of thing in our African American ministries. And so we'll start having those numbers come in the next year or so. We think that's going to be the case as well. Hit the next slide for me. I want to talk about the program a little bit. All right, and so I probably shouldn't put that up there, but I'm going to leave it up there now because it would be now super double distracting. I'm going to let you get a second to look at it, and I'm going to tell you what it is. It is a 2-year leadership development program where we try and help everyone in the program get better at their own personal walk with Jesus, their own personal ability to be and act professionally, their own ability to set goals and make calendars, those kind of basic skills that it takes to be successful in the Young Life staff world. We try and help you, again, in your regular walk with Jesus. As again, I said, personal spiritual development. We have scripture memory that's involved with this. We have books that you read that are involved with this. And it also we also try and help you with the nuts and bolts of being a great Young Life staff person. We work on Young Life talks. We work on how to lead leaders. We work on leading campaigner groups. We work on what you do to lead your leaders at summer camp. I don't have this on here. There is a summer requirement to be in our program. And the summer requirement is that you're either on summer staff or you get an assignment. Now, you may not know, I know we have people from all across the gamut of roles in Young Life. You may not know the difference of being on summer staff versus being on assignment. But there's a big difference. They're both important roles, but the assignment role is is a super significant thing that we have the opportunity to get our folks, and we have and the staff people, it just blows me away still. I think we're up to 12 of our DFL folks this year who are going to have full assignments as work group bosses, head leaders, those kinds of roles at camp, which is a really big deal. And all of that does is it gets you ready to be on Young Life staff. Now, I will say this before I go over this calendar. I view this as a 2-year date between Young Life and you. And so I would say this, if I was dating someone, if I was going to date someone, I would never date someone that I knew going into it I could not marry. Like, for whatever reason, there's no way I'd marry her, so why would I go on a date? That's a waste of time, right? So if as you sit there, you go, there's no way, I know for sure, I will never go on Young Lifestyle. I would just say this isn't for you. And then if we were to say, there's something that we'd say we can't, it's not possible for us to ever hire you where you are right now, we would say, this probably isn't for you. Now, having said that, the other side of it is true too, which is this. If you engage in this, we have a class of folks here, and you get hired, you need to hear from me that the folks who are leading this will be committed to you for 2 years. But we expect you to be committed to us for 2 years. So just like any relationship, if you've been in a dating relationship, you know, sometimes I kind of like her more than she likes me, sometimes she kind of likes me more than I like her, right? It ebbs and flows. And marriage works because we're committed to one another, regardless of how we feel about each other. Same with this. This works because people who are leading you here are going to say, no, I'm committed to you. I'm committed to you for 2 years. We're going to see this process out. And you're going to say, no matter how I feel, I'm going to stay committed. Here's how it generally works. Not always. Either you're all in for the whole 2 years, and it works out great, or you have a semester where you're kind of dipping your toe in the water, right? And you're like, I'm kind of in, I'm kind of out. And in general, once you get through that first semester, people are all in. And when you get through the first summer, it just changes. I can't explain it. I don't even know why. But I've seen it happen so many dozens of times that I just know it to be true. So there is a summer requirement. Good news is this. We're going to pay you for your work in the summer. So if you're in the DFL program and you go serve at a summer camp, we're going to pay you $200 a week for every week you work in the summer, whether it be on summer staff or on assignment. It's part of the program details. Here's what our schedule looks like. This was our last year's schedule. It's going to change a little bit. We're going to have an orientation for everyone in the nation. Part of the cost of the program is we will fly you there. It's going to be, we know now it's going to be at the new Texas Young Life Camp, and which will be really awesome. And right now, my best guess is, so I want you to get a feel for this room right here is being repeated all over the southern part of the United States, over and over and over again. We're going to have somewhere around 130 to 150 people at that national orientation. So you're not alone in this thing. Lots of people say they recognize either the population has changed so much, we have to do something, or we are not doing a great job of reaching that community right over there, and we have to do something. And so that's why we're doing this. We have, as a part of the requirement, your first year, you have 3 retreats. You have one at the orientation. We have one in September. That would probably be done regionally. And then we have one in January. That'll be a little different this year because we have a big thing if you're on full-time staff in January this year. So we're working on what that might look like. But you're going to have 3 of those. Your second year, you have 4, and you see graduation down here. At the end of the 2 years, as a part of your graduation, you will have done a 2-year community assessment, and we give you all a template to do that, and you're going to assess the needs for your role in Young Life in your community. And at the end of that, you're going to get up in front of a bunch of ladies and men who are considering supporting people in the room, and you're going to talk. You're going to give a pitch. You're going to talk to them. It's about an 8 to 10 minute presentation. Here's the community. Here's my Young Life story. Here's my role. Here's how much money we need for me to be able to do this. I'm asking you to give, and we're going to coach you how to do all that. Okay? And then you make that presentation. We've had people get $10,000 from a donor at these presentations. I mean, it's really powerful and really awesome, and it's just a really cool thing. One of the things, for example, in one of these presentations, we had a guy in the community that I used to live in, just outside of Dallas, called Mesquite. And his discovery over 2 years was that while 87% of the student population at the high school he worked at was Latino, only 15% of the teachers at the school were Latino. And only 2% of the police force was Latino. And only one of those 2 guys spoke Spanish, rather. And so he looked at that and said there's a miss on the communication between people in authority and the people who we want to behave and act in a certain way for their own well-being and for the betterment of the community. And he goes, I'm the gap, I'm the bridge, I'm the person to bridge the gap in this community. It was like super powerful that he discovered all this stuff on his own. We helped him a little bit, but he did all the work, the hard work on it. So that's what graduation is. At the retreats, and I'll get to the monthly stuff later, at the retreats, there's a cultural overlay piece to all of this, where we go through different books, we tell life stories cross-culturally, and our heart behind that is this. The color of your skin, your ethnic racial background, my color of my skin, my ethnic racial background is a gift from the Lord that He wants to use for His glory. And we want to help you become more comfortable with that so that the Lord can better use you and exactly how He made you to reach kids that nobody else can reach in a way that you can reach. That's our goal behind all of that. And it's one of the things that makes the program really powerful is the cultural overlay piece. And so that happens mostly at the retreats, but there's extension and follow-up throughout the semester. And then there's monthly meetings. At the monthly meetings, we go through, again, the things I told you about, the real practical, day-to-day, here's personal spiritual development. We're going to have everybody sign up and have to give a Young Life talk. Second year, you do campaigner lessons. We talk about contact work. We talk about recruiting leaders, setting goals, all those things, personal financial development. Also, starting January of your first year, we have the only Latina national professional fundraising coach in Young Life is on our team, and she has helped develop a fundraising model that we help walk you guys through to prepare you to raise money, because that's part of being on Young Life staff. And actually, one of the things we realized in this program, and you may not know these details, but typically the way someone goes on Young Life staff is you get interviewed in April, March, February, and they say, David, you got a job, congratulations. We're going to give you a fundraising coach. And in 2 or 3 months, we expect you to raise $20,000. And I go, great. And I start calling my family and my friends, and they give me money. Now, what's the problem with that model for folks who might not come from the same background as me?
They might not know people with money.
They might not know anyone with money. Can somebody here give me an honest answer about if you asked your family to give you money, how that would go? Okay, think about it this way. What if you were the first or second person in your family to ever go to college, right? And you graduate, what is the family expecting from you? Somebody tell me. Money. You're the supporter. And you go, oh, by the way, not only am I not going to make $100,000 a year, I'm going to make $25,000 a year. And oh, by the way, I need you to give it to me. Tell me how that conversation goes. It's not the same as my conversation, is it? Not even close to the same. And so what we've tried to do, is try to make it an apples to apples conversation by pushing play on that a year and a half ahead of time. So a process that might take me 3 months might take someone else a year and a half, and so that's what we've tried to develop so that we can better meet that need. Because we realize that we have to lengthen and widen the on-ramp to Young Life staff if we want to attract people to reach communities that we haven't been reaching. So that's what we're doing. That's it. Now, I can talk more about details about this, but I want to show you some of the results. Would you hit the next slide for me? You saw that first class. This is our graduating class this year. They graduated in like a month, and they're phenomenal. I mean, they're incredible, really gifted, really called. I think this guy's going to end up on property staff. I've got a bunch of folks who've already gotten full-time job offers. It's an incredible group of people. And then the Lord has allowed this. This is our first year class in our division this year. Go ahead. That's our graduates. The next picture. That's our first year class in our division this year. One of the cool things about